Hi, I am Divya, your UGC NET mentor. Welcome to Eduquire, a space for teachers and aspirants to learn, prepare, and grow. Education isn't just about textbooks, it's about ideas that shaped humanity. From ancient Indian sages to modern philosophers, every thought about education tells a story. In this video, we'll explore Unit 1 Educational Studies, the philosophies that build the foundations of teaching and learning. Watch till the end for important MCQs based on past UGC exams. In today's video, we'll be covering about the contributions of Indian school of philosophy such as Sankhya, Yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism, Jainism, and Islamic traditions. Then we'll move forward and talk about the contributions of Western schools of thought such as idealism, realism, naturalism, pragmatism, Marxism, and existentialism. The next topic in this unit is approaches to sociology of education. In this, we'll be talking about what is symbolic interactionism, structural functionalism, and conflict theory. Then we'll move forward and talk about the concepts and types of social institutions, concepts of social movement and their functions, and at last we'll talk about socialization and education. Now let us look at the Indian philosophical foundation of education. Indian philosophy sees education as the journey of self-realization, that is from ignorance to wisdom, right? Then it emphasizes harmony between body, mind, and soul. A balance between the spiritual and the practical. Now let us understand the major schools of Indian thought. The first one is called Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya philosophy is also known as science of dualism. We'll see forward why it is called so. Its thinker is sage Kapila. Sankhya philosophy says that the reality consists of two elements. What are those two elements? The first one is called Purusha. The first one is called Purusha. The second one is called Prakriti. Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the spirit and Prakriti means matter. Purusha is the spirit and Prakriti is the matter. So, according to this school of philosophy, ignorance arises when we confuse matter with spirit. So, education helps us to remove this confusion, to help us understand and differentiate between Purusha and Prakriti. So, what is this goal of education now? So, the goal of education is to discriminate. What is it? It is to discriminate between what? Between Purusha and Prakriti. So, to get that knowledge to which leads us to Kaivalya. What is it? Discrimination gives us knowledge, and this knowledge leads us to Kaivalya. What do you mean by Kaivalya? It means liberation. Liberation through what? Liberation through wisdom. So the role of teacher according to this school of philosophy is as a guide. Yes. So teacher acts as a guide to help learner move from the confusion stage to the clarity stage and attain self-awareness. So the curriculum according to this school of philosophy should include logic, philosophy and reflective practices. What all should it include? It should include logic, then it should include philosophy and logic, philosophy and reflective practices. Right? Let us look at an example to understand this better. So in a classroom, if you are encouraging students to reflect critically, that is separating facts from belief and truth from bias, it is a Sankhya inspired practice that we generally carry out in our classrooms. Our next school of thought is Yoga philosophy. It is called the path of discipline and balance. Its thinker is Patanjali. Now it focuses on developing harmony between what? Body, mind, and soul. There should be harmony between body, mind, and soul. So all of these should function together in harmony. So it introduced Ashtanga Yoga. What is it? Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga means eight, right? So it is an eightfold path. The first one is called Yama. The second one is called Niyama. The third one is the asana. The fourth one is pranayama. The fourth one is pranayama. Then the fifth one is pratyahara. What is the fifth one? It is pratyahara. Right? Then what comes next? It is sixth one is dharana. Sixth one is dharana. Seventh one is dhyana. And the last one is called samadhi. The last one is called samadhi. So this is the eightfold path, starting with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So education is a mean to train the mind for self-control and inner peace. What is it? Education is for self-control and inner peace. Self-control and inner peace. So here teacher is a guru. Okay, he is a spiritual and moral guide that guides the students towards this Ashtanga Yoga, the eightfold path. Here discipline and self-regulation are the essential learning outcomes. Okay, so our curriculum should nurture physical, mental, moral, and spiritual dimensions. What are those? Mental, physical, moral, and spiritual. So education should be able to cultivate these values in the students, right? Now if we look at the example in a school setup, the school meditation program or yoga period in the morning assembly echoes yogic educational ideals, right? So whatever yoga or early morning meditation that we carry out in school is all part of our yoga philosophy. Our next school of thought is Vedanta philosophy. It is the knowledge of the ultimate reality. What is it? Knowledge of the ultimate reality. Its main thinkers are Shankaracharya. He introduced the concept of Advaita. The next one is Ramanuja. He introduced the concept of Vishishta Advaita. What is it? Vishishta Advaita. The next one is Madhava. He introduced the concept of Dvaita. Okay, now let us look at what this theory says. Okay, so it believes all existence is one, Atma and Brahma. Atma, its main concepts are Atma and Brahma. Okay, so it says Atma, what is Atma? Atma is the self. Brahman is the universal spirit. Universal spirit. So it says both Atma and Brahma are one and the same. What is the role of education here? The education's main goal, according to Vedanta philosophy, is self-realization. What is it? It is self-realization. Right? So self-realization is discovering divine unity. Okay. So teacher here is the remover of ignorance. So teacher brings a person, that is the student, out of the darkness. So guru is the dispeller of darkness. What is guru? Guru in this case is the dispeller of darkness, right? So according to this school of thought, values like truth, compassion and self knowledge guide learning. What all guide learning? Truth, compassion and self knowledge. So moral and spiritual education are equally important as intellectual growth. What is it? Moral and spiritual education, they both are equally important for intellectual growth. Okay, so learning, you should integrate meditation, reflection and character building. What all should you include? Meditation, reflection and character building. So these should be the main goals of your education: meditation, reflection, and character building. So if we look in our school setup, the moral science classes that we have help students to introspect themselves and reflect the Vedantic philosophy that is being used in our schools. Now, if you look at the next school of thought, it is Buddhist philosophy, the way of wisdom and compassion. Buddhist philosophy is the way of wisdom and compassion. Its main thinker is Gautam Buddha. Now, what are the core principles of this? Core principles of the Buddhist philosophy are: you have four noble truths, and the eightfold path. You have four noble truths and the eightfold path. So education leads to elimination of ignorance. What does education do? It helps in the elimination of ignorance, right? And attainment of wisdom. So once ignorance is gone, what do we attain? We attain wisdom. So we have to rise above our ignorance and try to accept the reality, try to see the things as they are. So it promotes equality, right? Buddhist philosophy promotes equality, and it says that everyone should be educated. Everyone should be educated, right? Then it emphasizes the middle path. That is, it says that there should be balance between what? Material world and spiritual world. Material world and spiritual world. Here learning happens through experiences, reasoning and compassion. Learning happens through experiences, reasoning and compassion. So discipline, moral conduct and mindfulness. What all are important here? Let me write it here. So here the important things are discipline. The first one is discipline, then moral conduct, discipline, moral conduct and mindfulness. So these three are the key aspects of the Buddhist philosophy. Now if you look at an example, the modern peace education that we have in our schools, or the meditation breaks and emotional intelligence teaching, all of this reflects the Buddhist philosophy that we are applying in our classrooms. The next school of thought is the Jain philosophy, right? It is the principle of ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. Ahimsa is non-violence and self-purification. So its main thinker is Mahavira. Now this whole theory, it is based on the concept of ahimsa, right? So it says there should be ahimsa, then talks about Satya. Satya means truth. And aparigraha. What is it? Aparigraha. It means non-possessiveness. Okay, you should not have any possessiveness regarding any material thing. You should always be truthful, and ahimsa is that there should be no violence. Okay, so education, what should education do? It should develop moral discipline. It should develop moral discipline and truthfulness in the people. Moral discipline and truthfulness. So here the role of teacher, okay, here the role of teacher is he acts as a guide for self purification. Teacher acts as a guide for self purification, right? Purification through learning. So one should get educated to purify themselves. This is what the role of the teacher is, to guide students to achieve the self-purification through learning. So it focuses on, what does it focus on? Ethical conduct. It focuses on ethical conduct and compassion. Focuses on ethical conduct and compassion. So students should develop empathy. The most important value that a student should develop here is empathy for all living beings, and it should promote minimalism and self-restraint. So you should not be using more than what you require. Okay, it promotes minimalism and self-restraint. What does it promote? Minimalism and self-restraint. That is a basic kind of lifestyle. No luxuries. Okay, whatever is required, only that should be there. Now, example of this would be environmental ethics and kindness education in schools. What is it? Environmental ethics that we talk about. Environmental ethics and kindness education. Basically the moral education, right? So these are rooted from Jain philosophy. Now if we look at the next one, it is Swami Dayanand Saraswati. He talks about rational and Vedic learning. Okay, he advocated for back to the Vedas. So he says that we should go back to our Vedas. Back to the Vedas. Okay, so he emphasizes on truth and moral reasoning. Truth and moral reasoning. Okay, so he stressed that there should be co-education. There should be co-education. He also spoke about women education, right? He emphasized that women should be educated. Okay, women education, and there should be equality. Okay, there should be equality. Everyone, irrespective of whether it is a man or a woman, they should be treated equally, right? So education, what all it should, he said that education, it should combine, what all it should combine? He said that it should combine science, spirituality, and morality. Okay, so our education should be a mix of all these three. And he encouraged inquiry based education, he encouraged debate, okay, and he encouraged logical thinking. So he said in a classroom we should have inquiry based education, there should be debate, there should be logical thinking, and because there is inquiry, there is logical thinking, he opposed what do you call as blind faith. Okay, don't follow anything blindly, think about it, logically reason it out. Okay, and superstitions. So he said that there should not be any blind faith, there should be no superstitions attached. We should have a logical mindset. Think about it logically, rationally. You think about your decisions and then act upon it. So he emphasized teacher as reformer. Here, what is a teacher? Teacher acts as a reformer. Okay, teacher is helping the child to develop these qualities: inquiry based education, debate, and logical thinking. So teacher is reforming the mindsets of the students and acting as a moral leader. Acting as a moral leader. Why? Because he also spoke about Vedas, that a person should be truthful and there should be moral reasoning. That is why a teacher should act as a reformer and as a moral leader. Now, if you look at the example for this, now inquiry based learning and moral education programs, okay, whatever activities that we are doing in our classroom these days, which are developing the uh, curiosity of the students, okay, all of that comes under inquiry based learning. And the moral education programs, all of that is part of Swami Dayanand Saraswati's thoughts. Okay, our next school of thought is Islamic thought. It sees knowledge, that is ilm in Urdu, as a divine duty. Okay, so it sees knowledge as a very sacred thing. Okay, it sees knowledge as a sacred thing and says that learning should be worshipped. Learning should be worshipped. Okay, so education should balance both spiritual and worldly knowledge. Spiritual and worldly knowledge. So education should be able to manage these two. Okay, it should be able to balance both spiritual and worldly knowledge. Then it emphasizes discipline, humility, and service to humanity. So it emphasizes discipline. Okay, it talks about discipline, humility, and service to humanity. Service to humanity. So these are the various things that Islamic thought of school emphasizes on: discipline, humility, and service to humanity. So what should a teacher do here? Teacher should hold high status. Teacher holds a high status. Teacher holds a high status and knowledge must be transmitted with purity. Since the teacher is holding a higher status, the knowledge, whatever is being transmitted, it should be transmitted with purity. Okay? So, encourages lifelong learning and moral excellence. There should not be any breaks. It talks about a lifelong learner and integration of ethics in curriculum. Very important. Integration of ethics in curriculum. So these are the various aspects that Islamic thought talks about. So value education programs and moral integrated syllabus resonates with Islamic school of thought. So with this, we finish our Indian school of thought. So Indian philosophies make education spiritual, moral, holistic, and self-transformative. So they talk about learning is not just knowing, it is becoming. Okay. Now let us go forward and talk about the Western philosophical foundations of education. When we move westward, education becomes a study of reason and experience. So, Western thought focused on how knowledge is formed, tested, and applied in daily life. Now, if you look at the first school of thought, it is idealism. It talks about education for moral and spiritual development. The key thinkers are Plato and Hegel. So here reality is spiritual. They talk about ideas are more real than material object. What is it? Reality. They say that reality is spiritual. Reality is spiritual and they say that ideas are more real than reality. that is the material objects. Okay, so idealism, it says that reality is spiritual, and it says that ideas are more real than the material objects. So here the education aims to discover truth, beauty, and goodness. Remember these three words: truth, beauty, and goodness. Okay, so education talks about these three things. The main aim of education according to this school of thought. So teacher here is a moral and intellectual guide. Teacher is a moral and intellectual guide. Okay. So curriculum, what all should it include? It should include literature. Okay. It should include literature, art, ethics, and philosophy. It should include literature, art, ethics, and philosophy. Education should build character. Education should build character and self-control. And self-control. So idealism, it talks about that reality is spiritual, that is, ideas are more real than the material objects. The main concept here is truth, beauty, and goodness. Remember these three words and associate it with idealism. Now, teacher here is a moral and intellectual guide. The main subjects here are literature, art, ethics, and philosophy. The main reason why idealism came into play is to build character and self control. Okay, so in simple words, idealism believes that education should make you a better human being, not just a skilled worker. Okay, our next school of thought is realism. It says learning through senses and observations. Okay, learning through senses and observations. Its key thinker is Aristotle. So reality exists independent of mind. What is it? Reality. It exists independent of mind. Reality exists independent of mind. That is, we discover it through our senses, right? We discover reality through our senses. That is why he says learning through senses and observation. So education is all about understanding nature. Why do we need education? To understand nature. Okay, that is things around us and the natural laws. So we need education to understand nature and the natural laws. So curriculum should include, what all should it include? Because we are talking about things around us, it should include science, it should include logic, and it should include maths. Okay, according to Aristotle, these are the important things: science, logic, and maths. We require this to understand things around us. So teacher here is an expert and guide in truth seeking. Who is a teacher here? Teacher is an expert. Okay, teacher knows everything. And a guide. What does he guide in? In truth seeking. Teacher guides in truth seeking. Okay, so discipline is very necessary here. Okay, discipline is very necessary for clear reasoning. To reason things out, you should have certain kind of discipline. That is, learning is objective and fact based. Learning is, it is objective and it is fact based education. Okay, now all the science labs, the field studies, observation based activities reflect realistic ideas. Okay, now talking about naturalism. Naturalism is learning through nature and freedom. Learning through nature and freedom. The main thinkers are Rousseau, Pestalozzi, and Froebel. Okay, So here they say that nature, naturalism, the word itself says nature. Okay. So they say that nature is the ultimate teacher. There is no teacher beyond nature. Okay. Nature is the ultimate teacher. So education should follow the child's natural growth. What should education follow? Child's natural growth. It should not have any rigid systems. So as a child grows naturally, education should come to him. We should not be putting cages that a child should be able to do this or do that. Okay, there should be a natural flow of education. Now it emphasizes sensory learning and discovery. So if you are giving the autonomy to the child to learn on his own, he will use sensory learning and discovery. Okay, he will try to touch and feel. Experiential learning will happen here. So child is inherently good, so don't suppress their curiosity should not be suppressed. Okay, teacher is therefore a facilitator. Teacher is a facilitator and not a dictator. Teacher is a facilitator and not a dictator. So curriculum, what all should it include? It should include nature study. Students should be allowed to go out, learn on their own. Okay, it should include nature study, art. Then they should be allowed to play outside on their own, and there should be lot of activities. Okay, kind of experiential learning. Then the Montessori and kindergarten education are built on naturalistic perspectives. Okay. The next one is pragmatism. Pragmatism is learning by doing. Now we all know the major thinker is John Dewey and William James. Okay. So truth is what works, is what they say. Truth is what works. So therefore knowledge must be practical. They speak about practical knowledge. Practical knowledge. That is learning by doing. Okay. Famous dialogue here is education is life itself. Education is life itself, not preparation for life. Not preparation for life. Okay. So they are saying that education is life itself. It is not preparing you for life. Education itself is life. Okay. So learners should solve real world problems. They should be allowed to solve real world problems. They should be allowed to solve real world problems. Okay. So school is a social laboratory, a democratic community. School is a social laboratory. Okay, kind of a democratic community where students are given the chance. Okay, they are given the opportunities to learn on their own. Uh, they are encouraged to have this practical learning happening. So teacher here is a co-learner. Teacher is learning along with the students. Teacher is a co-learner and a guide. Okay, teacher is a co-learner and a guide. It emphasizes on, what is it? Experimental. It focuses on experimental learning. It focuses on cooperation among the students. Okay, they should try to learn from each other also and reflect on what they have learned. Okay, reflection. So these three are very important: experimental learning, cooperation, and reflection. So project based learning or the internships, the collaborative activities, all of those reflect John Dewey's idea of pragmatism. So the group projects that we give, okay, there we can see cooperation. Students reflect on what they are doing. It is kind of experimental learning where they are trying to learn a new thing on their own. Okay. The next one is Marxism. Marxism says education is for social change. Okay, education is for social change. The key thinkers are Karl Marx, Antonio Gramsci. Okay, the key thinkers are Karl Marx and Antonio Gramsci. So education reflects the economic and social structure. Because we are talking about social change, we'll talk about concepts like economic and social structure, economic and social structure of society. Okay, this is what the education reflects. So it can reproduce inequality or transform it. Okay, education can either deepen the economic and social structure, okay, the inequalities that exist in the society, or it can bridge the gap and try to reduce it. So education can either make or break it according to Marxism. So the purpose of education, it is to create awareness of oppression. It is to make, purpose of education is to create awareness about oppression. Okay, it is about talking about the social structure and making the learners aware of the social inequalities that exist in our society. So teachers here, what are teachers here? Teachers brings the social reforms. They are the agents. Teachers are the agents of social reform. Okay, so curriculum, now because we are talking about oppression, we are saying the social structure is being promoted, or students are being made aware of the social inequalities that exist in our society. The education or our curriculum, it should focus on promoting equality. It should show students that this is not right. There should be equality and everyone should be given a equal chance. So it should promote equality, it should promote justice and critical consciousness. Critical consciousness. Okay. So education is a tool to achieve a classless society. So to achieve a classless society, we should talk about equality, we should talk about justice, and students should be critically aware. They should be able to analyze their surroundings critically to have a classless society. Classless society. The main aim of Marxism is to achieve this classless society. So NEP 2020's Inclusive Education and Right to Education Act mirror the Marxism principles of equality. Okay. Now let us look at the next one. It is existentialism. Existentialism. It is freedom and individuality. Okay. Now the key thinkers are Kierkegaard, Sartre, Simon de Beauvoir. So it says that every individual creates their own meaning of life. Every individual create their own meaning of life. Okay, everyone has their own experiences. So education, what should it do? It must help learners understand themselves. Education should help learners to understand themselves and see their experiences as new and help them learn from it. Okay, so learners must be free to choose and question. They must be free. Okay, they must be free to choose what they want to learn, and they must be free to question if they do not understand something, or if they do not agree with something. They should be encouraged to choose what they want to learn and question what they do not understand. So teacher here again is a facilitator. Okay, teacher is a facilitator and not a dictator. Teacher will not tell the child what they have to learn. Teacher will give the autonomy to the child to choose and question what they want to learn. Okay, so it emphasizes creativity. Students can be very creative when they are given opportunities to learn and grow. Okay, they can be very creative. They can be authentic in what they are learning. Okay, there will be authenticity and there will be self expression. Students will not be scared to express themselves. They will clearly and freely express what they think of a situation. Okay, So learning is deeply personal and emotional. Because we are giving them so many opportunities to learn on their own, learning here becomes very personal and emotional, right? So an example of this would be personalized learning that we talk about these days, that there should be individualized learning, individual plans that we have to make for each child. So personalized learning and life skill education are part of our existentialism. Okay. So with this, we end our Western school of thought. So Western philosophies gave education logic, freedom, and experimentation, making learning very active and democratic process. Okay. Our next topic is approaches to sociology of education. Education and society, they both are intertwined, they both are connected. So one reflects and shapes the other. Okay. So education shows what kind of society it is. Society in turn changes and affects the education. So sociology of education studies how education functions as a social system. Okay, so how education is influenced by the culture of the society, by the social institutions that exist in that society. Okay, so it sees the effect of each other and the social forces that exist in the society. Okay, so how all of this affect education is what we'll study under sociology of education. So here there are three major theoretical approaches. The first one is structural functionalism. The first one is structural functionalism. So it sees education as social stability. It sees education as social stability. Key thinkers are Emile Durkheim, Talcott Parsons, and Kingsley Davis. Okay, so the core idea. What does this theory talk about? It says that society is like a living organism. Remember this line. Society is like a living organism. Very important. Society is like a living organism. It is said by the theory of structural functionalism. So each part, now the parts of society, what can we say? It can be family or school, okay? Family, school, or the economy. Now, all of these, how our body have parts, these are the societal parts. Okay, so each one of these has their own function, and it contributes to making the society become stable. If even one of this is not working well, the society will not be stable. So all of this work together, okay, and they contribute to the to bring stability to the society. So education helps in maintaining the social equilibrium. Okay. So if I have to talk about few important points here, this theory, it trains individuals. What does it do? It trains individuals, okay, for their social roles. Okay, education helps people to become something, right? So it trains individuals for their social roles. Okay, from a student he would become a worker to a citizen. Okay, and it promotes social integration. It promotes social It promotes social integration by creating a sense of belonging in all the individuals of the society. And it supports meritocracy. It supports meritocracy. What is that? That is position based on ability and achievements. Okay. Meritocracy is positions based on ability and achievements. Basically, it is if you study well, you'll get a better job. Okay, people who study from good institutions are having a higher opportunity of getting good jobs. So it supports meritocracy. If you are from a good institution compared to someone who has done from a local institution, the person who has done from a higher institution will be placed in a better position. Okay, so it supports meritocracy. and it encourages cooperation and unity. Okay, it tells us that all of us are together, social integration, sense of belonging, sense of belonging. Remember these words, sense of belonging. So here they say that school, now on the societal level, we have so many set organs here, what it spoke about, family, school, economy. Now it sees school itself as a society. Okay, it calls school as a mini society. This theory calls school as a mini societies, and it is preparing learners for the outside world or the larger world. Okay. Now, our next theory is conflict theory. It sees education as a tool of inequality. It sees education as a tool of inequality. The key thinkers are Karl Marx, Bowles and Gintis, Bourdieu, and Althusser. Okay, so the core idea of this is, now I discussed with you Karl Marx theory, right? We spoke about how there is lot of inequality in our society. So this theory says that education is not neutral. Education is not neutral. It reflects the power and inequality of society. Now, if you are from a better family, the education that you receive is different from someone who is not able to afford education of that level, right? So, education, now if I have to talk about some important points here, the first one is education maintains dominance of the ruling class. Okay, ruling class. Now, a king will always be a king. A king's son will become the next king. Okay, so education maintains dominance of the ruling class. Okay, bourgeoisie, what we say. Then the school reproduce social inequality. The type of schooling that you receive. So, schooling produces inequalities. Schooling produces inequalities. So it depends on access of quality education, what I spoke about. If you are from a good family, the education that you will receive is different from someone who does not come from a very sound social background. Now, there is also hidden curriculum that it talks about. Hidden curriculum. What is hidden curriculum? The curriculum that is not explicitly stated. The curriculum that is not explicitly stated is called the hidden curriculum. So the hidden curriculum teaches you obedience, competition and hierarchy. Okay, the curriculum often favors the dominant ideologies. What does it do? Curriculum often favors dominant ideologies. So basically the theory says that if you have money or if you are from a good social background, you will be in the higher position compared to people who are not of that social level. Okay, so education will reinforce this. Now kids who come from a higher social background will have the same kind of lifestyle. People who come from a lower social background will have the same kind of lifestyle. It does not often happen that there is a lot of change. Maybe a little change in your social status, but majority of it will remain same, is what the Marxism theory says. Okay. So education can, however, become a means for social revolution if it is critically used. Okay. So if education is properly used, it can bring a change. The last one in this is symbolic interactionism. Symbolic interactionism. It sees education as meaning making. Okay, that is, education helps us to make meaning of the world around us. The key thinkers are George H. Mead, Charles Cooley, Howard Becker. Okay, so the core idea says, what is the core idea? The core idea says that education is a space of everyday interaction. That is, meaning is created through symbols, through communication and relationship. Meaning, how do you make meaning of something? Either when you are communicating with someone, okay? When you are talking with someone, you make meaning of the world around you, or through symbols, right? Now, if in a class I showed this to a student, he knows that he has to stop talking. So that is understanding the meaning through symbols and relationships. And relationships. Okay. So if we talk about the main ideas here, okay, the first one, it would be it focuses on micro level interactions. Okay, it focuses on micro level interactions. That is everyday interactions between you and your students. Okay, it gives labels. Okay, labels influence self image. The labeling theory. The labeling theory. Okay, if I say that this student is bright, even though he may not be performing so well, but if I say that this is a bright child, he would have that thing to perform better. Why? Because he has been labeled to be a bright student, he will try his level best. But if I call someone a slow learner, okay, if I label a child as a slow learner, even though he might have the potential to do better, but he would tell himself that I am a slow learner, I may not be able to do it. So labels influence how you see yourself. What do labels do? Labels influence your self image. Okay, how you have been labeled influences your self image. The next one is self fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Students perform according to their expectations. What I spoke during labeling theory. Okay, so if I label a child, they will perform accordingly. So students perform to expectations. If I tell an average child also that you can do so much better or you can score more than this, he will actually do it. Why? Because they are working according to my expectations. So if I put good expectations or if I have a greater expectations from my students, the output will also increase. Okay, that is self-fulfilling prophecy. Now it emphasizes classroom language, gestures, and communication pattern. Because we are talking about labeling theory, self-fulfilling prophecy, and all, the communication that is being used in the classroom, the gestures, or the language that is being used to address the students, it should be very positive according to this. Okay. Now it can be negative also. So there are both pros and cons. So teacher-student relationship shape learning and helps to get better motivation and confidence. Okay. So how a teacher is addressing a student will affect the child's ability to perform in the classroom. The next topic is concepts and types of social institution. What are social institutions? Social institutions are the organized systems. Social institutions are organized systems, okay, of social relationship that fulfill essential functions of the society. So to perform basic functions of the society, we need social institutions. They help us to guide our behavior, maintain order in the society, and transmit the culture to the next generation. Now if you look at the major institutions, okay, first one is family. The first social institution is family. It is a primary institution. It is a primary institution. It is also known as primary socialization. Primary socialization. It teaches values, norms, and roles. As soon as the child is born, the first interaction he has with the society is through family, right? After family comes school. The child goes to school. It is called the secondary socialization. Secondary socialization. Here he learns formally, he starts learning. He learns about discipline, how to build skills, how to work in groups. Okay, those all are learned through school. The next social institution is religion. Social institution is religion. It teaches them moral and ethical guidance. Okay, moral plus ethical. Okay. The last one is economy. Next one is economy. So economy, it tells you about production and distribution of goods and services. That is the another social institution. The next one is state. Okay, what is now state talks about the power, who is in power, what are the laws that are governing the people, what is the type of governance that is there in the state. All of that is also a social institution. So, what are the educational implications? Family and school, these are the major transmitters of social control and values. Okay, a child learns basically from family and school when he is young. The school links the private world, home, and public world society. So, school is a link. School comes in between. School is a link between home and the world. Okay, it prepares the child to go from home to the world. Okay, the next concept of social movements. What are social movements? Social movement is a collective effort of people. Social movements are collective efforts of people. Now, why do they put this efforts? To bring some change. They put this effort to bring some change. Okay, now social movement is a collective effort of people to bring social, political, and cultural change. So this change can be social. Okay, it could be political, social, political, or it could be cultural. To bring these three changes, there are social movements. A few key features of this would be there are organized groups. Okay, it is not by one person, though it can be started by a person, but it is an organized movement. People join together and try to work as a group. Okay, and because it is an organized movement and people are coming together, there is a shared ideology. There is a shared ideology or a cause. Okay, there could either be a shared ideology or a cause for which all of them are coming together, and all of this is being done to bring some reform. To bring some reform. Remember this. Social movements are done to bring some kind of reform. So it can be short term or long term. The next topic is theories of social change. The first one is relative deprivation theory by Ted Gurr. So it says that people mobilize when they feel deprived. Okay, people mobilize when they feel deprived in comparison to others. Okay, compared to others, when they feel deprived, people mobilize and try to bring some reform or some change. So, dissatisfaction, major thing here is dissatisfaction. What does it lead to? Dissatisfaction leads to collective action. All of them come together. That is relative deprivation. Or they all feel that they are deprived compared to someone else. That is why they all come together and try to take some action. Okay. Our next theory is the resource mobilization theory by McCarthy and Zald. They say that success of a movement depends on resources. Yes, the success of a movement, it depends on resources. Now, what are these resources? They can be either leadership, organization, media, and finance. So next theory is political process theory by Charles Tilly. He says that a social movement emerges as soon as they see a political opportunity. As soon as they see a political opportunity, a social movement arises. Now, this could be because there is a supportive institution or there is a weak opposition. Okay, so all your anti-corruption movements in support during the democratic openness is because of this political process theory, right? The next one is new social movements theory by Torain and Habermas. So they say that the new movements, the modern movements, they focus not just on economics. Okay, the new social movements do not focus only on economics, but they focus also on the identity, gender, the environment, and the human rights. Okay. So the new movements arise not only because of economics but also because of identity, gender, environment, and the human rights. For example, your feminist movements, the environmental movements, or the LGBTQ plus educational reforms that we talk about are all part of new social movement theory. Okay. Our next topic is socialization and education. Now, first we go forward, let us understand what is socialization. So, socialization is basically the lifelong process. It never stops, okay? Lifelong process. From the time you are born to the time you die, you are a part of a society. So, therefore, socialization is a lifelong process by which what do individuals learn? They learn about the cultural norms of the society they are a part of. Okay, so they learn about the cultural norms, they learn about the values, beliefs, and the behaviors of the society. Okay, so they are told to behave in a certain way, they are told that these are the values that they should abide by, these should be their beliefs. So all of this is possible because of socialization. So what is the relationship between socialization and education, right? So education is both an agent and outcome. It is both agent and outcome of what? Of socialization. Of socialization. How can we say that? See, we spoke that family is the primary socializing agent and school is the secondary socialization. So it prepares, education prepares individuals for their social roles. It tells them how they have to behave socially. So it tells them about their social roles and also their civic responsibilities. Civic responsibilities, right? So it is only through education that a human being is able to become part of society and understand their social roles and their civic responsibilities. We are doing this through the schooling that the child goes through. Okay, so children internalize this culture, this discipline, and cooperation with others. That is how socialization and education are interconnected. Socialization leads to education, education in turn leads to socialization. So you can draw this, yes, so you can draw it like this. Okay, socialization is leading to education, education is in turn leading to socialization. Our next topic is education and culture. What is culture? Culture is shared beliefs. Culture is shared pattern of beliefs, behaviors, okay, beliefs, behaviors, traditions, okay, traditions, and also values and knowledge. So all of this are part of your culture, which form the society. All of this form the society, right? So education and culture are interdependent. Again, we can draw the same thing. Education and culture are interdependent. How is it? Education transmits cultural heritage, right? So we are through education we are passing our culture to the next generation. So education is helping in the transmission of knowledge. Transmission of knowledge from one generation to the other. So education is able to modernize our culture. all the older cultural values and beliefs. As we move forward, as the society progresses, the values and cultures of the society also changes. Now all of this is possible only because of education. As we learn new things, we unlearn the older things, or we unlearn the patterns of the society that are not appropriate right now. So education helps us to preserve our national identity. It helps us to preserve our national identity and that feeling of oneness and brotherhood. Culture lag can be reduced by progressive education. Okay, so whatever is happening now and whatever used to happen earlier, this gap between culture can be reduced through education. Now, if you integrate folk art or local history in your curriculum, it will bridge the gap between tradition and modern society, and child will be able to connect and bridge these two. Now let us talk about the contributions of great thinkers to educational thought for a social change. So what is said about education to bring a social change, right? So here we'll talk about a thinker, their core idea, and the educational message or example that they are trying to give. Okay, so let us start with Swami Vivekananda. He sees education as man making education. It should make them self confident and it should develop them spiritually. Now, there is a very famous saying which goes by, education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. So he's saying that education is something that is helping to build the character and to strengthen it, and you don't have to bring it, develop it newly. It is already there in every human being. Through education, we are trying to bring out that perfection that is already existing in the man, right? The next one is Rabindranath Tagore. He says that there should be freedom in learning, nature based learning. So, the naturalism we spoke of, naturalism. The naturalistic school of thought we discussed under the Indian philosophy is part of Rabindranath Tagore's philosophy, right? So, Shanti Niketan, here learning through nature and art. So, students are given the autonomy to learn on their own. The next one is Mahatma Gandhi. He talks about Nai Talim, that is basic education, learning through work. So here he says that education should be linked with productive labor and moral values. So whatever education is being provided, it should help the individual, it should help the person to find jobs, and also there should be learning through work. So experiential learning, okay, that is what Mahatma Gandhi was talking about. Next is Sri Aurobindo. He talks about integral education, that is integration of body, mind and spirit. So when you integrate all this, what happens? Focus on self-realization and synthesis of the Eastern knowledge and the Western knowledge. So once you integrate body, mind and spirit, you are able to achieve self-realization. That is what Aurobindo says. Next one is Jiddu Krishnamurti. He says that there should be freedom from conditioning, there should be awareness based education. What does he mean by that? He says that school should nurture independent thought and mindfulness. So there should be student autonomy in the classroom. The student should be given opportunities to learn on their own and choose what they want to learn. You cannot tell the child to learn it in a certain way or tell them to learn only a certain topic. They should be given the autonomy to choose what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. Next one is Paulo Freire. He talks about critical pedagogy and education for liberation. That is, he rejects the banking model. He says that there should be dialogue and problem solving in the classroom. Students should be given opportunities to participate more. So, it is kind of a student centered classroom, right? Then Mary Wollstonecraft. She spoke about women education, feminist education, equality of women. So here basically she spoke about giving equal opportunities and that there should be co-education, that is both boys and girls being educated in the same institutions, in the same classrooms. So she advocated co-education and equal intellectual opportunities for both men and women. Feminism is basically talking about giving equal opportunities for both male and female. Next one is Nell Noddings. He talks about ethics of care. That is, education should promote empathy and relationships over competition. So, education is not to prove that someone is superior and someone is inferior, but rather to promote empathy and to be able to build relationships with each other. Savitri Bai Phule. He spoke about girls' education. Now, this is during the time of independence. So, he mainly focused on giving girls equal opportunities to be educated. So, he saw education as a means of social reforms and to improve the condition of women in the society. So, this would empower the women. Okay, so that is how Savitri Bai Phule saw education, and he believed that through education we can bring a social change and there can be some kind of reform in the lives of female. Okay, the next one is national values in the Indian constitution and their educational relevance. So here we'll talk about different what are these the different national values, what do they mean and what are their educational implications. The first one is socialism. Socialism basically talks about providing equal opportunities and that there should be social justice. There should not be any discrimination in the society. So to promote socialism, our educational implication would involve inclusive classrooms, no discrimination, and equitable access. Now, what is the difference between equal access and equitable access? Equal access is providing everyone with the same thing, okay? Irrespective of how much they require, we'll give each and every individual the same amount or the same quantity of something. Now, let me say that each one of you wants two chocolates, right? So if I give equally two chocolates to each and every person, then it is equal opportunities. But if someone might want three, someone might want one, someone may not want a chocolate. Now that is equitable access. So I will give how much that person requires. If they need one, I'll give one. If they require three, three. So that is how equitable access works, giving opportunities as they require. Okay, so we should be able to understand what the learner requires in the classroom and provide them with that. That is where individualized education plan comes into action. The next one is secularism. Secularism is basically respect for all religions, saying that all religions are equal. So here we teach tolerance, okay, and interfaith harmony. We try to teach our students that it is not that one religion is greater, one is lower. No, all religions are equal and there should be equal respect for each and every religion. That is what we talk in secularism. The next one is justice. Justice talks in fairness in distribution of rights. Now there should be justice in the form that everyone should be given equal opportunities, right? Fairness in distribution of rights. So there should be equal participation in education, gender and caste equity should be there, right? So there should not be any discrimination based on gender and caste, and equal opportunities to be given to each and every person. Next one is liberty, that is freedom of thought and expression. So there should be a democratic classroom. Students should be given the opportunities to question, to express themselves. Okay, so it should be a democratic classroom. There should be inquiry and there should be creativity in our classrooms. So we should not limit or cage the creativity or the expressions of our students. We should help them grow and try to express themselves more freely. The next one is democracy. It is participation in decision making. Now, all our student councils in the school are part of this democratic value from our constitution. Now, cooperative learning is another example. So here we should include students in the decisions that are being taken. What may be the kind of chapter that they are going to study. You can discuss with your students what they want to study, how they want to study it. So you are making them part of the decision of what they are going to do. Now, when you give such opportunities, the brain development of the students will be more democratic. Next is equality. Equality means there should be no social discrimination. Now, to avoid social discrimination, we have brought in the concept of reservations and inclusive curriculum. That is, bringing everyone to the classroom, irrespective of their gender, caste, creed, whatever that is, right? The last one is freedom, that is intellectual and moral autonomy. So there should be open discussions and exploration in learning. Students should be given the opportunities to explore new ideas and thoughts on their own. And wherever support is required, teacher can act as a facilitator. That is how we have incorporated freedom in our curriculum. Now, with this, we come to the end of our chapter, that is unit number 1, educational studies. Now, let us go forward and look at some of the important MCQs. Now, these MCQs are from the perspective of your UGC NET exam. So, these are some of the important MCQs. Now, try to answer them based on what we have studied till now. Okay. The first one is, which of the following best represents the ultimate aim of education according to Vedanta philosophy? Which of the following best represents the ultimate aim of education? What is the aim of education according to Vedanta philosophy? First one is development of sensory knowledge, realization of unity of Atma and Brahma, attainment of empirical knowledge, or preparation for social efficiency. Yes, it is option number B, realization of unity of Atma and Brahma, right? So the ultimate aim of Vedantic education is to say that these both are one and the same. That is, realizing the unity of the individual self, that is Atma, with the universal reality, that is the Brahma. Okay. Next, according to John Dewey, the curriculum should be designed A. Based on mental faculties of the learners. B. Around organized subjects and facts. C. Around real life experiences and problem solving. Or D. To preserve traditional knowledge. Now, what is a curriculum? How it should be designed according to John Dewey? Yes, it is option number C, around real life experiences. He talks about pragmatism. Remember, pragmatism, practical knowledge, that is hands-on doing. Okay, so he believed that curriculum must arise from learners' experience. Now this will happen by connecting school with real life education. Okay, that is practical education. Next, which statement is not true about naturalism in education? Naturalism, they are saying, which is not true. Nature is the ultimate teacher. Education should be child-centered. Discipline should be imposed externally, or learning should be through experiences. The answer is option number C. Here, naturalism, obviously, nature is the ultimate teacher. This is true. Education should be child-centered. Forever, it should be child-centered, right? Always. Next, learning should be through experiences. Yes. So only discipline should be imposed externally. Nothing should be imposed externally on the students. According to naturalism, it opposes external control. It says that everything should come from within. So it supports self-discipline and freedom of the learner. It supports self-discipline. It supports self-discipline and freedom of the learner. Next, the theory of education as an instrument of social change. Education as an instrument of social change is most closely related to Durkheim, Karl Marx, Paulo Freire, or Plato. It is option C, Paulo Freire. So he viewed education as a transformative act. He saw education as a transformative act that awakens critical consciousness, and this critical consciousness, it drives the social change. Okay. Next, question number 5. Structural functionalism views education as Structural functionalism views education as a tool for capitalist domination, a social subsystem that maintains equilibrium, an agent of alienation, or a medium of resistance to power structures. Structural functionalism. Yes, it is. Option number 3. Structural functionalism views education as a social subsystem that maintains equilibrium. Now, who are the main thinkers? Functionalists are Durkheim and Talcott Parsons. So, they see education as essential for maintaining social stability and transmitting the shared values. Right? So, to maintain this, we need a social system which acts as an equilibrium. Next one. Which educational implication arises from Buddhist concept of middle path? Option A is emphasis on competition and reward, avoiding extreme of indulgence and austerity in education, complete reliance on rote learning, overemphasis on abstract knowledge. It is option number B, avoiding extremes of indulgence and austerity in education. Middle path says that there should be balance. There should be no extremes. So we should avoid extremes of indulgence and austerity in education. Who among the following is associated with critical pedagogy? It is Paulo Freire. He introduced the concept of critical pedagogy. He emphasized that there should be dialogue, reflection, and there should be liberation from oppression. Right? So he brought in this concept of critical pedagogy. Next, the existentialist approach to education emphasizes training of senses through experiences, awakening moral and spiritual ideals, development of individuality and authentic choice, or D, social conformity and obedience. So, existentialist approach, what does it talk about? It talks about development of individuality and authentic choice. So, existentialists, they say that there should be, what do you say? Existentialists like Sartre stress freedom, individuality, and responsibility. So, education should help the learners to discover and develop their authentic self. Right? Existentialist comes from existence. So a person should be encouraged to discover their authentic self. Authentic self. So therefore there should be development of individuality and authentic choices in the human being. Okay. Next one, the concept of learning by doing is most closely related to which of the following educational practices? Is it Montessori method or Froebel's kindergarten, Dewey's project method, or Rousseau's natural learning? Learning by doing is associated with which of the following educational practices? Learning by doing is John Dewey's theory. So Dewey's project method, it embodies pragmatism. Okay, learning by doing, practical knowledge, pragmatism. So learners construct knowledge through active participation and the experiences that they go through. Okay. Last one, in Sankhya philosophy, ignorance, that is avidya, can be removed through what? Ignorance can be removed through rational analysis and discrimination, strict obedience to teacher, rote memorization of sacred text, or material acquisition and competition. It is option A, rational analysis and discrimination. Sankhya never said that there should be strict obedience to teacher, rote memorization, none of our philosophies talk about it, and material acquisition and competition is also not something that is encouraged. So it is rational analysis and discrimination. So Sankhya, it emphasizes on Viveka. What is it? The power of discrimination between the Purusha, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha and Prakriti. So this knowledge or the discrimination power between Purusha and Prakriti is what helps us, is what can be done through Viveka, right? So with this, we come to the end of our Unit 1, that is Educational Studies. In the next video, we'll be talking about Unit 2, that is History, Politics and Economics of Education. Don't forget to subscribe to Eduquire, where every concept tells a story.